Thank you for joining me this evening. So, if anyone doesn't know who I am, I'm Heather Kenney. I'm also HIAOMT accredited. I work in the salivary diagnostic space as the clinical trainer for Bristol Health. So, that's where most of you know who I am. And I am the founder and lead microbial investigator here at Saliva Sleuths. I opened up this educational platform, and the webinars are just a small glimpse of what we're doing inside Saliva Sleuths. We're doing webinars once a month. I have open microbe nights biweekly and lots of educational snippets of learning and CE courses inside the Sleuths community, along with resources. And it's mostly hopefully community-based in that fashion. So welcome to Saliva Sleuths. It's kind of an inside view of what I want to do and help encourage you who are wanting to go beyond and start doing more root cause. I'm super excited to be here tonight, and I'm introducing my friend and my dear co-host from Functional Roots podcast, Amanda Hale, who is also part of the Sleuths group. And Amanda is a dental hygienist. She has had over 15 years of experience and has a strong focus on patient-centered care. She is also HIAOMT certified, and she's an educator, a key opinion leader, along with a contributor to RDH magazine and Dentistry IQ. She recently completed her health coach certification through the Functional Medicine and Coaching Academy and is now bringing those tools into practice to help patients create real, lasting changes. Tonight, we'll be talking about something we all know that matters, and it can be hard to sometimes apply into dentistry. So we're covering nutrition today. By tonight, you'll hopefully have the skills to be able to have those tough conversations. We're going to lay down the understanding of connection between diet, inflammation, and oral health by turning that into a clear, meaningful conversation with patients and hopefully making that easy for you. By the end of the evening, hopefully we can have some clarification on how we can communicate and maybe even explore other methods to look at nutrition for our patients. Amanda, take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Heather. Okay, sharing screen. Yes. Awesome.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. I do love making things interactive and fun. So one way I try to do that is through making my presentations a little interactive. So if you look on the screen right here, you see bright green. I'm obsessed with pink and green right now, but you'll see dots. And as I'm going through the presentation, if you want to participate and count the dots, whoever scans my QR code and fills out my little form and gives me the correct number of dots in my presentation will get a special gift from me. So I'll give you a second to count those dots. And I will say this, I've done this presentation once before, and somebody asked in the chat, do the slides that double up count? Like if I add something to like this slide, for instance, does that count? Yes. So add that number on to the next slide. So clear as mud. So from nutrition to numbers, we're going to be talking about using biomarkers to elevate preventative dental care. And this is a really fun discussion on nutrition. So we're going to jump in. Heather has already graciously given my bio, but I will let you count those dots. Learning objectives, she has also already done that. So I will continue to let you count those dots as well. And then I don't really need to share my disclosure slide with you because this isn't CE based, this is straight up education. So I'm going to jump straight in. Who has seen this three-legged stool of disease? If you're in functional medicine, there's a very good chance that you have already seen this stool or this concept. But if you haven't, I would love to share this with you. So if you've never heard of epigenetics, this is really where the three-legged stool of disease really begins to take shape. So I'm not going to put anybody on the spot, but the stool is my favorite analogy in the functional and biological space, and it really helps to paint a picture of how disease can either prevent disease can be prevented or how it can fuel the disease. So genetics. So let's take a look at that first back leg back there, genetics. So we have no control over the cards that we are dealt when we're born with. So this is our inherent traits, maybe inflammatory responses, enamel composition, hair color, eye color. There's certain aspects of our DNA we cannot control what is there. That blueprint is printed on. Now, the other leg to the right over there is lifestyle. So we do have a lot of control over these areas of our life. So these are things that include nutrition, sleep, movement, stress, relationships in our lives, and behaviors. This is where the concept of epigenetics comes in, and this is the leg most patients and providers underestimate. So, epigenetics, if you don't know, is the study of how behaviors and environmental factors such as diet, stress, and toxins cause changes that affect the way genes work without altering the underlying DNA sequence. So, it's influencing the expression of your genes. So the other leg out here on the left is the environment. So the environment or the exposures or terrain, if you've heard anybody speak about the germ terrain theory, this is largely overlooked. And these are things that include toxins, chemicals, heavy metals. Does it sound like dentistry at all to anybody? Endocrine disruptors, et cetera, et cetera. And that also includes microbial pathogens, exposures to mold, and even parasites. So the oral, gut, and airway environments are affected by this. Our social and emotional environments also have a large impact on our environment. So dentally, what this could look like is oral hygiene, bacterial load, smoking, toxins that we talked about, right? Heavy metals, gosh, where could that come from? Fluoride as well as mercury. Those are definitely big toxins that I'll talk about here in a second. So we absolutely influence this leg through dental care. So let's talk about soft teeth run in my family. If you're on the dental side of things in this group, you've heard this so many times. Oh yes, I have soft teeth. Soft teeth run in my family. And this is our favorite. I think every patient loves to say this. Every patient's like, yes, it's genetic. Okay, sure. But you've also inherited your family's eating habits. You've inherited your family's other habits and lifestyle choices as well. So it's not just genetic. I absolutely acknowledge that there are genetic conditions out there, right? We know that amelogenesis imperfecta and dentinogenesis imperfecta as well are very real. But the amount of patients that we see that claim to have these conditions is not exactly the same. We do know, however, things like orthodontics, maybe car accidents, siblings tend to trampolines. I feel like here in Utah is one of the biggest causes of tooth damage, but it's not the case that people think. So let's just vent for a minute. What are some of the best excuses patients have had for their disease? Or maybe some of the grossest things you've ever seen clinically? I'll let you guys kind of do that in the chat. Heather, I know you're going to be on that. So I'm going to move on to my next slide here. So this is the environment that we are able to have impact on. So if you've ever had a fish, or we work in dentistry, and I think there's a stereotype that a lot of dentists seem to have fish tanks in their office, as evidenced by Finding Nemo. So we've probably all seen what happens if we go for a long weekend or Christmas break and nobody has taken care of the fish tank. It gets disgusting, right? So when we start to get a gross, dirty fish tank, or if you overfeed the fish, whatever, its environment becomes toxic. So think about that for a second. How do you solve the problem of a dirty fish tank? Now think back to our stool analogy. If you have a person with inflammatory disease and they're living in a toxic environment, how do you think addressing one leg of the stool is going to go? Do you give the fish medication? Do you tell this fish to manage its stress better? Do you tell the fish to eat less? No, like none of those make sense, right? You feed the fish less, but you have to change the environment of the fish, or that fish is quickly going to die from a toxic environment. It is going to make it sick. So, not acknowledging that the environment needs to be addressed is literally putting a band aid on a potentially life threatening issue. So, the answer isn't to take the fish and put it in a clear plastic bag so he can continue to live secluded from his environment. The fix is to stop living in a toxic environment. So, what's in our environment? These do not count as dots if anybody is thinking that. If you're following along with my game, these are not dots. So, I know this is a tough conversation in traditional dentistry. I think with this group, we're probably all a little bit more on the holistic, crunchier biological side. So, it's probably not as controversial, but I know that many of us have been in dentistry for a very long time. Fluoride and chlorhexidine have been the gold standard for decades. And we've been taught that they are the best tools that we have to fight cavities and gum disease. But as we learn more about mitochondrial health, systemic inflammation, the oral microbiome, it's important to take a step back and ask, are there safer, equally effective alternatives? So, this isn't about fear mongering or dismissing everything we've been taught. It's about evolving with the science and recognizing that our recommendations should prioritize not just oral health, but whole body health. Functional medicine teaches us to look at root causes rather than just symptoms. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So, we can look at the chart. I'm not going to go through everything. I'm happy to share slides with everybody, but I know uh, I want to make sure that we respect everybody's time. So fluoride, we know that fluoride is linked to thyroid hormone activity and bone metabolism, but specifically fluoride, I recently learned T3 and T4 in our thyroid. We've heard those hormones, right? T3 and T4, what are those? Well, that is how many receptor sites that hormone has for iodine. Guess what heavy metal competes for uptake in your thyroid? We already knew it was a little bit of an endocrine disruptor. I didn't know that what the mechanism of action was there. So to be perfectly honest, this is a hormone disruptor. I never knew that. I've heard the neurotoxin argument at the IAOMT conferences, talking about how it can move along the ganglions and a lot of other arguments. But I had never specifically heard how it mechanically worked, basically, to disrupt thyroid. And that is a big issue because how common is thyroid conditions with our patients? I mean, you see levothyroxine on just about every health history on every patient that you see. So that's a huge one. The list there, I mean, triclosan, sodium lauryl sulfate, SLS, and there's so many derivatives of it. Parabens and phthalates mimic the estrogen. Chlorhexidine, we know that wrecks our gut and oral microbiome. Titanium dioxide, the concern there is nanoparticles can cause oxidative stress and DNA damage. And then BPA, which is the bisphenol A, is an endocrine disruptor. And then my last but certainly not least, artificial dyes, which we are going to jump in. This next slide is so fun. I haven't tried to call just one company out. We all have been guilty of this, right? We love our bright colored products in dentistry. Give us the pink fun stuff. Give us the bright colored fun everything. Give me the fun flavored topicals. But I can tell you, I've never once thought about the fact that the topical that I'm using has red dye number 40 in it. What in the heck are we doing? Why does our topical need to be colored? Not to mention all the other things that are going on in there. But if you look at the wide variety of colors of things that are meant to absorb into our tissues, wow, we've got some problems and we've got some things going on. So what is the uptake process here? Artificial dyes aren't just for cosmetic or fun purposes, but every time we apply that bright colored topical anesthetic or a fun polish, we are introducing compounds that can mimic or block hormones like estrogen in the thyroid. The oral tissues, we know those are so thin and highly vascular. So those chemicals don't stay in the mouth, they circulate systemically. So imagine that a compound, even further with a product like SLS, right, that causes tissue dilation, it can directly cause tissue permeability. So this is more than just hormone disrupting chemicals. So, how that kind of works is it starts with hormone mimicry. Some dyes, particularly AZO dyes like red 3, yellow 5, have structures similar to estrogen and thyroid hormones, and they can bind to hormone receptors and send false signals to cells. And that confuses our body's natural rhythm. This leads to hormone imbalances and kind of exacerbates fatigue, the symptoms such as fatigue, irregular cycles, mood swings, weight changes. So the analogy that I gave on the other page kind of is like, imagine that you have a key that fits into the hormone, but the receptors lock, but that doesn't actually open the door. Now your real hormones can't get in, and you have this excess amount of hormones circulating throughout your system. So these colorants reach the liver, they've got to be detoxed. But this constant low level exposure adds to that total toxic burden. And that's creating a disrupting hormone signaling and issues in our gut health. There's also the hormone blocking conversation. So these dyes can inhibit thyroid peroxidase, which is the TPO. This is an enzyme that's needed for thyroid hormone production. This releases T4 to T3 conversion, and that's going to slow down your metabolism and affect energy and immune response, as well as tissue repair, which is essential for all of our oral healing. So they can also block that iodine uptake that I mentioned earlier. So if your thyroid isn't converting properly, you're gonna see it, not just in low energy, but in slower healing, increased bleeding, and reoccurring inflammation. All right. So we're going to start diving into the oral systemic nutrition and some of the critical main roles that nutrition play and what we see in our patients. So, oral tissues respond to systemic inflammation and nutrient status. So, oral health is influenced not only by the bacterial biofilm, Heather can tell you about that all day long, but it's also affected by the host's systemic environment, including immune function, inflammatory regulation, oxidative stress balance, and the body's ability to repair tissue. So, nutrition plays a key role in each of these biological processes. We know nutrition directly influences our immune function, our tissue repair, our oxidative stress regulation, and the periodontal disease progression as well. So, we're going to take a look at these closer. I hope I'm not going too fast with the dots. I'm sure you're able to keep up with those. So, the immune system, our immune systems determine how our bodies respond to bacterial challenges in the mouth. So, periodontal disease is not simply caused by bacteria, right? It results from the host's immune response to the bacterial biofilm. I still do fully support bacterial salivary diagnostics, don't worry, but it doesn't tell the full story. So, biological mechanisms of our immune function starts when our pathogenic bacteria accumulate in the gingival sulcus. The immune system then activates our inflammatory cells. Then we get our neutrophils and our macrophages to release the inflammatory mediators. And these mediators destroy bacteria, but can also damage the surrounding tissues. So, what micronutrients support the immune function? So, these are going to include vitamins A, C, D, and E, as well as zinc and selenium, as well as carotenoids and other antioxidants. So, deficiencies in these nutrients can impair immune responses and worsen periodontal outcomes. Research supports a review on nutrition and periodontal health found that micronutrient deficiencies can impair immune responses and exacerbate periodontal tissue damage. So, inadequate nutrition can therefore weaken our host's defense against periodontal pathogens and increase susceptibility to the disease progression. So, the takeaway here is that two patients may have similar plaque levels. They may have similar biofilm counts, bacterial counts, but their immune system determines how severely the tissues are going to respond. So let's talk about tissue repair and healing. So the immune system determines how the body responds to the bacterial challenge in the mouth and systemically, of course, but I'm focusing on the mouth. So, like I said, periodontal disease is not simply caused by bacteria. It is the result from the host's immune response to bacterial loads. But the biological mechanism, our immune function, again, starts with the pathogenic bacteria accumulating. So this is the process where we're starting to get some tissue repair. So the collagen production, this is our body's natural way to create what it needs to fix the damage that has been done. The fibroblasts are initiated, the bone remodeling, and the angiogenesis to develop those new capillaries is going to help support that immune cell function and regulate that signaling from our inflammatory system. So, healing of our gingival tissues and all tissues is going to require adequate nutrition to support that collagen synthesis, the cellular repair, and that bone metabolism. So, the periodontium is constantly undergoing remodeling due to mechanical forces, bacterial challenges, as well as the inflammation. So, nutrients involved in this tissue repair process include vitamin C, which is critical for our collagen synthesis, vitamin A, which is critical for epithelial repair, vitamin D for bone metabolism, as well as protein and amino acids, and zinc and magnesium. Dr. Burney, if you guys follow Dr. Burney, I'm a huge fan of his. He actually put something out recently about collagen really not being, collagen's kind of a controversy, right? Does your body actually absorb it? Does it not? There's two camps on it. But saying that zinc is one of the foundations that your body has to have to build its own. And really, that more zinc deficiency is what is kind of being perpetrated for the collagen synthesis. I'm interested to see more of research that's coming out on the collagen supplement world. Do you take collagen? Do you not take collagen? Personally, I'd rather take something and it not work than be deficient in it on that one. So I don't overdo it, but okay. Oxidative stress. Let's talk about oxidative stress. I think this was a term that really I didn't fully understand for quite a few years. I've heard it, I knew it damaged, but really digging deep into it, I like making things more just fun visually. So doing this slide really helped me visualize how oxidative stress really does play a central role in the periodontal tissue destruction and honestly how oil pulling is so darn beneficial for our tissues. So, the biological mechanism is when our immune cells attack bacteria, release those molecules. They're called reactive oxygen species. This helps kill bacteria, but it also damages host tissues if production is in excess. So, this creates oxidative stress, which leads to our cellular damage, collagen breakdown, which that is what ages us, right, ladies? We don't love that. Not everybody gets to age, right? But we don't like that. We don't want to prematurely age. We all want to age gracefully. Bone loss, tissue degeneration, excuse me. So, what is the role of antioxidants? Antioxidants neutralize these free radicals and help protect our tissues from the damage from these ROSs. And every time I hear ROS, I can't help but think of Princess Bride. It's not ROS, but it's the rodents of unusual size in the like forbidden forest. It's the ROUS, but I always think ROS, ROUSs. So kind of digging further in, what is oxidative stress? So that oxidative stress occurs when there is an imbalance between the reactive oxygen species, the ROSs, and the body's antioxidant defenses. So reactive oxygen species are chemically reactive molecules that include superoxide anion, which is O2 negative, hydrogen peroxide, H2O2, hydroxyl radicals, which is OH, and these molecules are naturally produced during immune responses, particularly when we have neutrophils and macrophages attacking these bacterial pathogens. So in healthy physiology, ROS serve as an important purpose. They help to destroy bacteria and regulate cellular signaling. However, it's all about balance, right? When the ROS production exceeds our body's antioxidant capacity, oxidative stress occurs, leading to the damage of lipids, proteins, DNA, and the extracellular matrix components like collagen. So, this imbalance plays a major role in the initiation and the progression of periodontal disease. So, our key concept is that periodontal destruction is driven not only by bacteria, but the host's inflammatory response and oxidative stress levels. I think somebody is unmuted, Heather, if you wouldn't mind muting them so I don't get too distracted by what's going on in the background. So what nutrients? What are antioxidants? I think we've all heard these antioxidants, and I always refer to the Big Bang Theory. If you guys watch Big Bang Theory and Sheldon, they were sitting around having a blueberry pie eating contest. And Sheldon so appropriately said, well, I'm very concerned about my oxidants. What if I have too many antioxidants and I don't have enough oxidants to counteract my antioxidants? If you haven't seen that episode, it is pretty funny. But so the important antioxidants are carotenoids for this: vitamin C, vitamin E, polyphenols, selenium, and zinc. So these nutrients help maintain the balance between oxidative damage and antioxidant protection. Again, research has supported that periodontitis is associated with increased oxidative stress, which contributes to gingival and bone destruction when antioxidant defenses are insufficient. Antioxidants can help to reduce oxidative stress and support our periodontal healing when used alongside periodontal therapy. So, got to get that GBT machine. But periodontal disease is partly a battle between free radicals and antioxidants. So, the progression. So, nutrition influences how quickly periodontal disease progresses and how well patients respond to treatment. The biological mechanism of and nutritional status influence inflammatory mediator production, our immune cell activity, the collagen integrity, bone metabolism, and oxidative stress balance, right? We've got to have the balance. So these factors affect whether that periodontal tissue remains stable or if it continues to deteriorate. One of the analogies that I've been giving my patients, just talking about nutrition in general, is the foods and the nutrition and all of the decisions that you are making today are your body's building blocks for your future self, right? We know we have a new skeletal system. Was it every 10 to 12 years we have a completely new skeletal system? So the foods that I'm building and putting in my body now, and the weightlifting and the walking and everything that I'm doing now, is going to be my future self, right? And so having that perspective on how we're eating, how we're choosing to do supplementation, just how we live our life, are we doing stress? It's our future self. So are you going to be good to your future self with the decisions you make today? Or are you just going to have that kind of hedonistic, I want to do what I want to do, I want to eat what I want to eat, and I'll figure it out in the future? Luck may be on your side. You may have genetics on your side, but epigenetics are not on your side. So, what nutrients are involved with periodontal health? Again, we're going to talk about carotenoids a little bit further, but Carotenoids are powerful antioxidants that are found in carrots, leafy greens, sweet potatoes, peppers, and quite a few other fruits and vegetables. But these compounds help to regulate that inflammatory response and reduce the oxidative stress that our bodies go through daily. Research supports that a large population analysis found that higher dietary antioxidant intake was associated with significantly lower prevalence of periodontitis. Another study found that a greater intake of antioxidants such as vitamin C and E, as well as beta carotene, was associated with less periodontal disease progression over time. Additionally, carotenoids such as alpha carotene and beta cryptopanthenol have been linked with lower prevalence of periodontal pockets due to their anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. So, nutrition does not cause or cure periodontal disease alone, but it can accelerate or slow disease progression. We're going to dive deeper into carotenoids here in just a few slides, but I do want to do a little summary and brain break for a second. So let's bring this home to what we're fighting with every day. Genetics. Leg 1, genetics, the blueprint. However, while genetics influence susceptibility, they do not determine destiny. Got button happy. Genetic predisposition is a risk factor, but not an unavoidable outcome. From a clinical perspective, this leg of the stool is one that we have the least control over. Hygienists cannot modify a patient's genetic code, but understanding genetic influence helps us identify higher risk individuals and tailor preventative strategies accordingly. So, summary real fast here. Our immune function is supports the body's defense against those periodontal pathogens. Tissue repair provides the nutrients needed for collagen formation and healing. Oxidative stress regulation. This is antioxidants neutralize free radicals that damage periodontal tissues. And then the disease progression, the higher the antioxidant intake is associated with lower prevalence of periodontal disease. So let's do a quick brain break here. What some patients think we do. Thank you, AI, for generating the mouth janitor brought to life. What we actually do, right? We take blood pressure. We're taking x-rays. We're charting. We're trying to get a very detailed medical history. We're managing biofilm. We're managing their social life, right? I'm the hygienist that needs to know what's going on in your life. What do you do? How long have you been here? What's your story? I am that person. I need to know all those things. So there's a lot of hats that we wear during an appointment, and it certainly is, I don't want to say disrespectful, but it's rough whenever you hear patients just say, "I just want a regular cleaning." And it's just like, well, I don't think you don't understand. Patient is uneducated, but it's our job, it's our fight to give them education, whether they want it or not sometimes. Okay, so this was a quote from an abstract from the Journal of the American Dietetic Association. So we're educated on the oral systemic link and the disease process and inflammatory pathways. But why are we failing to have truly preventative conversations with patients? So reasons can be varied, right? Number one, insurance doesn't cover it. So are we going to spend a lot of time talking about it? But guidance really has been wide ranging just in my lifetime. I'm 42, and that's a small amount of time in the long history of people. But in the realm of guidance of nutrition, there's been a lot of changes. So I'll talk about that in a second. But one of the big things, there are CDT codes, but they're all kind of vague. And like I said, insurance doesn't cover it. So there's CDT code 1310, which is nutritional counseling, 9994, dental case management focused on patient education to improve oral health literacy, and 1330, which is oral hygiene instruction. So any of those can kind of fall into that realm. But when was the last time we've ever actually charged these out, right? Like we're just going to write off a zero code.
Was that a dot?
Oh, was that a dot? Hold on, let me go back. Yes, yes, that is a dot. Like Heather's in the running. I think somebody did ask me that last time too.
Yeah. Someone asked me a chat. So I was like, before we move on,
You.
if people
Yes,
are counting, we should have a dot.
it is a dot. Okay. So who in here, I can't see the chat, but who in here, just raise your hand, has had regular conversations about patients with nutrition and how important nutrition is to the success of their patients' oral health? And have you ever actually, okay, Heather has, Angela has, but reality, let's say you see 8 patients a day. Are you having 8 nutritional conversations a day? Probably not. And that can be for a wide range of reasons, right? Again, I said the CDT codes are one of them, but there was a scoping review of nutrition care in dentistry found that most oral health professionals provide dietary advice only occasionally rather than routinely. And this was in 2025 that this study was done. Hygienists recognize the importance, but struggle to deliver it. So there was a survey of dental hygienists that found the common barriers to nutritional counseling included lack of time. That's legit. Limited nutritional training, because it is very subjective, dare I say. I already said limited nutritional case. Low confidence in counseling. So not a lot of support. I mean, I don't remember in hygiene school, I can't speak for dental students, but in hygiene school, I don't remember a lot of anything nutrition. I know I had to take nutrition as a prerequisite for hygiene school, but there was really, really nothing on there. I think there can also be these other reasons, right? Fear of sounding judgmental. You know, people can be very self-conscious of, what do I eat? What do you mean I don't eat healthy? Yes, I do, as they have a sugar-free soda in their hand. Again, lack of subjective data, maybe concern about scope of practice. And then I think the biggest one to me, eating healthy means different things for everyone, right? In I don't want to say diet culture, but there are many types of diets out there. There's paleo, there's keto, there's AIP, there's low FODMAP, there's vegan, there's vegetarian, there's standard American. There's a wide variety out there. And there can be for religious reasons as well. So whatever the reason, it can be very personal. So, as I had alluded to earlier, we've had a very wide range of guidance from the government. So in 1992, we had the first food guide pyramid that gave us grains as 6 to 11 servings, vegetables 3 to 5 servings, and fruits 2 to 4 servings, milk and dairy 2 to 3 servings, and meat and protein 2 to 3 servings a day. Yeah, we all kind of look back, right? It's easy to look back now as we've seen what has happened with the implementation of that kind of food guidance. A little rough. Definitely not a well-fed, well-balanced population. I think the term is overfed, undernourished. There's not a lot of food there. In 2005, over 10 years before there was an update, my pyramid replaced the horizontal bands with vertical colored stripes to represent the 5 food groups, plus oils, adding a little person climbing steps to represent exercise. And I think that was actually good, like adding movement into the suggestions, because that was definitely missing. And then in 2011, up until 2025, my plate replaced the pyramid with a plate and a glass to visualize or to put emphasis on portion sizes. I felt like that was horrible, honestly. It gave I don't know, that was just visually horrible personally. I didn't like it. And then in 2026, the controversy came out. They reintroduced an inverted pyramid emphasizing protein and vegetables with whole grains at the bottom. And I think honestly, he took out seed oils 100%, which, hello, oxidation. So, what? Like it's hard? Right? This does count as a new set of dots. So, what could possibly be confusing for people? It isn't that nutrition isn't important, it's that it's complicated to talk about. So, oral diseases are inflammatory conditions influenced by nutrition. So, clinical impacts of poor nutrition are increased oxidative stress, delayed wound healing, impaired immune responses, increased periodontal inflammation. So, this is where carotenoids come in. So, carotenoids or carotenoids, however you want to pronounce it, potato, potato. These are naturally occurring fat soluble pigments that are found primarily in fruits and vegetables. I've already mentioned, carrots, sweet potatoes, spinach, kale, bell peppers. These are very common carotenoids that include beta carotene, lycopene, lutein, zeaxanthin, and beta cryptoxanthin. All things, right? We've all heard these things, right? No, I have never heard those things before in my life. If I'm being honest, I had never heard of a carotenoid before. I knew antioxidants. I've heard, I'm sure we've heard beta carotene and lycopene, right? We associate lycopene with eye health. But beyond their role in providing color in plants, carotenoids function as powerful antioxidants that help to regulate inflammation, oxidative stress, and immune responses throughout the body, including the oral cavity. So, one of the most well studied mechanisms of carotenoids is their ability to neutralize those ROS species. So, these unstable molecules are produced during that normal metabolism, but they increase significantly during infection and inflammation. So, elevated oxidative stress is a recognized driver of periodontal tissue destruction. Carotenoids help quench single oxygen and other free radicals, protecting the lipids, proteins, and cellular membranes from the oxidative damage. So, there was a systematic review of clinical trials evaluating carotenoid supplementation, and it demonstrated significant improvements in antioxidant biomarkers, such as ferric reducing ability of plasma, which is called FRAP. I had never heard of that before I started researching this, as well as oxygen radical absorbance capacity. This is ORAC. So, FRAP and ORAC. This suggests that carotenoids enhance systemic antioxidant defenses. So, because the oxidative stress plays a central role in periodontal breakdown, stimulating that inflammatory cascade and tissue destruction, the dietary antioxidants, like carotenoids, may provide protection support for periodontal tissues. So, carotenoids also play an important role in immune competence. Some carotenoids serve as precursors to vitamin A, which supports our epithelial integrity and immune signaling. And then it helps with healthy epithelial barriers, particularly important in the oral cavity, where the gingival epithelium serves as the first line of defense against those microbials from invading. So, adequate carotenoid intake has been associated with improved immune cell communication, enhanced antibody production, and improved function of macrophages and our natural killer cells. So, these immune supportive effects may contribute to our improved host response against these periodontal pathogens. In other words, carotenoids may not directly kill oral pathogens, but may strengthen the body's ability to regulate the inflammatory response and maintain tissue integrity. So, for hygienists and dental professionals who take a broader view for oral health, such as everybody in this group, carotenoids provide a useful example of how nutrition can influence our periodontal physiology. Encouraging patients to consume carotenoid rich foods such as leafy greens, orange vegetables, tomatoes, citrus fruits, etc. This may support their antioxidant capacity and support their inflammatory balance. While nutrition alone cannot replace periodontal therapy, I just want to make that clear, it may complement clinical care by supporting the host resilience and tissue healing. As research into the oral systemic connection continues to grow, the dietary patterns rich in phytonutrients like carotenoids may become increasingly relevant in preventing integrative dental care models. So I love this visual. I actually printed this out and I have it in my operatory. Just I'm a visual person. So this is where specifically in the chain that antioxidants and carotenoids come into. So for the rest of this, this is where nutrition and antioxidant status become clinically relevant. The antioxidants help to neutralize those ROS species before they damage our tissues. The carotenoids, which come from those colorful fruits and vegetables, are particularly powerful antioxidants. They're helping again to regulate that oxidative stress and support the immune balance. So, obviously, if that bacteria biofilm was never there, we probably wouldn't have this breakdown. But we can't sterilize the mouth. We can balance, but we can't sterilize it. I actually had a patient argue with me the other day about cleaning and sanitizing. He was like, "Yeah, but you're cleaning my mouth." Or what was it? Oh, yeah. I had a temporary assistant and she gave him a set of glasses that had been wiped with cabbie wipe. And you know the smudge that's left with cabbie wipe. And it drives me, that is such a pet peeve of mine. I'm like, who wants to wear that? And so I came in the room and he goes, "I think your assistant gave me dirty glasses," which I'm like, okay, first off, rude, pal. But I was like, oh, I get you. I was like, I understand. They look dirty. I was like, they are actually clean. They're disinfected. They just don't look clean. And he was arguing with me that clean is a more descriptive term than sanitized or disinfected. And I was like, actually, clean is a nice umbrella term, but it does not very specific actually, because I am cleaning your mouth, but I am not sanitizing or disinfecting your mouth. So I don't know. That was a saucy way to start the day on Monday, but that is what happened nonetheless. So anyway, this is one of my favorite pictures that I have put together, but if we can support the body's ability to neutralize that oxidative stress at some point, we may help improve the healing and that inflammatory regulation that the body is having. So, how can we have better conversations with our patients? If we know that nutrition is especially the carotenoid levels are so important, not just for periodontal health, but for whole body health, why aren't we talking about them? How can we talk about increasing these carotenoid levels if we or the patient has no idea what their carotenoid levels are? How do you measure this? So, what if you could measure these levels chairside? Would this empower you to have better conversations with your patients? Do you think that knowing these levels would change how you treatment plan for a patient's disease treatment? I hope the answer is yes on all of those. So I'm just going to take that as a passive yes. So there is a device that I came to learn about this year, and I wrote a couple of articles for Dentistry IQ on it. Truly, this has impacted my clinical practice and how I have conversations with patients. So, as I mentioned, this is a device that measures carotenoid levels in 15 seconds. That's faster than perio charting. This is not a diagnostic device. This is a conversation starter. So this little device is called the Prism, and it's the Prism IO, and it is a measure of biomarkers related to carotenoid antioxidant status through a non-invasive fingertip scan. This is going to give patients a baseline score, a visual measurement of health, and a way to track measurements or track changes over time. So this device uses over 234,000 hyperspectral absorption measurements per reading to accurately assess skin carotenoid levels. So this measures light absorption and applies machine learning calibration referencing Raman technology. And this is going to generate a carotenoid score in 15 seconds. So we periochart patients at a first visit to diagnose, but we periochart at follow-up appointments to track changes over time. The scanning technology helps patients see and understand and track their biomarkers either at home or in their dental office. So how does this work? I am not a physics person. I like science. I like learning. I don't pretend to understand wavelengths. I hated trigonometry with the passion of a fire, 1,000 suns. So I get the concept of this just based on the visuals. So I will tell you what I know about it, but the basic principle is that light interacts with molecules, right? That's very basic. But every molecule interacts with light in a very unique way, and certain molecules absorb specific wavelengths of light while reflecting others. So this is why different substances appear different colors to our eyes. So carotenoids such as beta carotene, lycopene, lutein, and zeaxanthin are naturally pigmented compounds. So they are, like I said earlier, responsible for the bright colors seen in foods like carrots, tomatoes, sweet peas, so on and so forth. So because these carotenoids absorb specific wavelengths of light, they create a very distinct optical signature. So technologies like the prism can take advantage of this property to estimate carotenoid levels in the body, which is really cool. So if you're like, wait, what is this? It's the same technology of how they measure your oxygen level in your finger. Same technology. So I already mentioned that, but instead of looking at just one color of light, hyperspectral systems evaluate dozens or hundreds of wavelengths simultaneously. So each wavelength provides additional information about the chemical composition of the tissue being scanned. So you can think of it like this. A normal camera captures 3 colors, red, green, and blue. A hyperspectral scanner captures many narrow bands of light across the visible and near infrared spectrum. So each molecule in the tissue reflects or absorbs these wavelengths differently. So by analyzing those patterns, the device can estimate the presence and relative concentration of certain compounds, including carotenoids. So really cool technology. I am glad there are people that study those things, understand physics, and are just geeking out about it. So that being said, this is going to be one of the ways that we can make things easier. So all these reasons, right? We have now clinical biomarkers that we can check chairside. So no blood, no saliva, just the patient's finger. This is measuring the biomarkers associated with the antioxidant and carotenoid status, and then generates a measurable score. So the prism is going to help clinicians start these nutritional conversations far more comfortably, because you're going to get the patient's attention because, like, this is something totally different. And then it opens up the door to conversation without you sounding judgmental for saying, oh, are you not eating good because your score is low? No, this is saying, hey, this is where you're at. These are the things that you can do to improve this score, right? That's the cool thing. We know that whatever we do in biomarker situation, especially carotenoids, that's something that you can change and you can influence directly. So this is relying on data instead of opinion, which is important. And it's going to help to motivate patients through measurable changes. When I first bought the scanner and I brought it into the office, our first assistant, Angela, oh my gosh, she probably measured herself 6 times a day. She was a little bit ridiculous with it, but she was obsessed with knowing like how stressed she was, if the blueberries she had at lunch helped. And I'm like, I don't know that your body processed those blueberries that fast, but let's see tomorrow, maybe if that score has changed significantly. So it's just really interesting. But one of the ways that I kind of will start a conversation with a patient is like, hey, Mrs. Jones. So part of what we're learning more about in dentistry is how nutrition affects the health of your gums and your body's ability to heal. One of the ways we can look at that is by measuring your antioxidant levels in the body, especially compounds called carotenoids. That usually comes from fruits and vegetables, really bright ones. So, this quick scan takes just a few seconds and gives us a score that reflects how well your body is supported nutritionally. It's not a diagnosis, it's just simply a baseline. So, then over time, we can see how small changes in diet or supplementation or decreased stress, improved lifestyle changes may improve that score. Empowering patients, that is always where it's at. So my next slide is me scanning myself. So you guys get to see my carotenoid levels. How it works, I can show you really fast. So this is, it's like a little puck, just a cute little guy. That's just about smaller than anything else we have in dentistry, right? Not quite our sensor, but it's not attached to anything. And then there's an app on your phone. You have options of putting in information if patients are really interested. They can put in information and it will send them to their either their text them to their phone or email them supplementation recommendations if they choose to do that. Or they can say, oh, well, maybe I'll make some changes at home and see if I can improve at the next appointment. Totally up to you, however you want to implement. So I'll show you. So it just turns on and you just place your finger on there. On the left side is what the app is showing. And it's kind of fun because you can tell them like, it works on the scan here. So yay, I'm in the blue. Tell them, red is low. And I have been scanning for a couple months now. I have seen some crazy scores for patients that I wouldn't have expected to be low. If I was just kind of making an assessment, I really wouldn't have expected. Some that I was like, yeah, this tracks. You came in with an energy drink in your hand. I wasn't expecting your score to be high. But it really does create a different conversation and it's kind of eye-opening for some patients. I had a patient a couple months ago now, I think. He and his wife came in and he was like super low. Like he was like a tick above the bottom. And I was like, hey, how are your stress levels? Because I like his gums were red and bloody. And he just like laughed. He goes, I'm finishing up my master's program and my wife is about to have twins next week. I was like, oh, you poor soul. So this is an accurate reflection of life, of what's going on for patients. And so it can be affirming of what they're feeling, what they're going through, and maybe a little bit of a wake up call of, hey, you've got to take care of yourself, especially in his situation, right? Like you've got something to live for. We need you to take care of yourself. So anyway, just it's been really, really interesting. So now that we can measure these carotenoid levels and understand what that score represents, the next question kind of naturally becomes, so what do we do with that information? Because the number by itself doesn't change outcomes. And this is where I think many of us clinicians can feel a little stuck. We know nutrition matters. We know antioxidant status plays a role in inflammation and healing. But we also know the reality of time in our chair. We don't have 30 minutes to break down someone's full diet, analyze food logs, build a comprehensive nutrition plan. And honestly, that's not always our role. So instead of trying to do everything, we focus on doing something meaningful. When a patient has low carotenoid scores, what that's really telling us is that their body may not have the antioxidant support it needs to effectively manage oxidative stress. And as we've discussed, oxidative stress is directly tied to inflammation, tissue breakdown, and healing capacity, especially in periodontal disease. So rather than overwhelming the patient with broad advice like eat healthier or add more vegetables, we can begin to guide them towards simple targeted strategies that support that improvement. So that can absolutely include whole food recommendations, right? You can't supplement yourself out of a bad diet, 100%, but encouraging those more colorful, nutrient dense foods. But we also have to recognize that behavior change takes time, and not every patient is ready for a complete diet overhaul. So, this is where supplementation can become a helpful bridge, not as a replacement for a healthy diet, but as a way to support the body while habits are evolving. So, when used appropriately, supplementation can help increase antioxidant availability, support the body's ability to reduce and neutralize free radicals, and ultimately create a more favorable environment for healing. And what's powerful here is that we're not just guessing. We have a way to measure baseline antioxidant status, make recommendations, and then reassess over time. So instead of vague conversations, it becomes a trackable, personalized process. And that shift from general advice to measurable change is where we start to see better patient engagement, better understanding, and ultimately better outcomes. So because at the end of the day, our goal isn't just to treat disease. It's to create an environment both locally and systemically where the body has the best possible chance to heal. So why this matters for clinicians? The value of this technology is not just the measurement itself, but what the measurement represents. We've already talked that, carotenoids are going to help to neutralize those ROSs because periodontal disease involves both inflammation and oxidative stress. Antioxidant status is going to influence the tissue healing, inflammatory regulation, and the host response to that bacterial challenge. So, measuring carotenoid levels provides clinicians with a tangible biomarker that's connected to lifestyle factors, particularly diet. So, I mean, I can't say enough about him, but creating just that healthier environment is going to I think, just make you stand out significantly as a provider because this is something next level, right? If you're in a biological practice, I mean, this is something that's super, super valuable. I unfortunately don't get to work in a biological practice. I work at a DSO, but I've been there long enough. And one of the very nice things about a DSO is I have a lot of clinical autonomy. So I get to have a lot of these conversations and kind of have carte blanche to implement things and have conversations. And I get it. Not every patient wants to hear this from me. And that's fine. That is fine. Like I would rather have a conversation, field where you're at, give you information. Maybe next appointment they're ready to have a conversation. Maybe not. That is not on me. At that point, that is on the provider. My passion, though, as a biological hygienist, is empowering modern hygienist. I think the biological hygienist is the nurse practitioner of the hygiene world. We're looking at oral systemic. We're creating oral systemic links where people just don't realize that exists. So we're moving from this model of tooth scrapers to prevention specialists and even healthcare hygienists. So using and implementing tools like the Prism can help to enhance that preventative care, strengthen that patient relationship and trust, and even expand the scope of education, empower us to have the full scope of our license and education. And then, of course, it's going to support better patient outcomes as well. And one of my favorite sayings that I'll tell patients is that genetics may load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. So you have control over things and you are not helpless in your disease. There's always something that you can do. So when we're able to combine education plus measurable insight, we can pose both clinician and patient. And that's, I think, just a beautiful place to be. So I'm going to finally start wrapping up and answer any questions that we may have. But I love sharing this quote with people. I'm a huge fan of James Clear. I get his newsletter every week, and he has like 3 ideas, 2 quotes, and a recommendation. This quote really hit me, and it's on the kindness of mastering your craft. So he quoted an interview with investor Rick Berman, and the interviewer asked him, "What is the kindest thing that anyone has ever done to you?" And I'm going to take a drink before I read this quote. So Berman said, "Our oldest son, Theo, who just turned 7, spent the first 6 months of his life in several NICUs. He was eventually helicoptered to Indianapolis at Riley Hospital for Children. And while we were living at that NICU for almost a half a year, we saw a lot of kids who passed away. Most of those kids were not as sick as Theo was. I don't know why exactly Theo survived, but I know that a major part of how he survived was because of several decades leading up to that moment. Numerous nurses, nurse practitioners, respiratory therapists, doctors, and surgeons had committed themselves wholeheartedly to mastering their craft. I can give you tons and tons of examples of these people, and I know that in the moment it wasn't necessarily viewed as kindness. But maybe in some sense, the kindest thing that all of us can do is to pursue something so radically that in some way is in service to others, because you just don't know how it's going to change the trajectory of human life. And so, for all of those medical practitioners, none of whom I'm sure are listening to this, I owe everything to because they gave me the gift of being Theo's dad. So, my challenge to you, what are you going to do about this? You guys are clearly next level providers. You're spending your Thursday night not even getting CE, just learning. So I challenge you to take a minute and think of a question that you can ask a patient tomorrow or Monday or whenever the next time you work is. You can ask, did you know certain nutrients help peel gums faster? Did you know your diet actually affects how your gums respond to inflammation? So education doesn't change behavior, but conversations do. So I definitely don't want to overwhelm anybody. Everybody works in very different practice styles, settings, just different places of life. I want to empower. And if you want to know more, if you want to see more, know more about the Prism, scan my QR code. The QR code is also where you will fill out my form to enter in how many dots were in my presentation. Um, I'm on social media as the Curvy Scaler. My email is thecurvyscaler@gmail.com. My website, Sequoia Collective. And then, as Heather mentioned, I am her co host on Functional Roots Podcast, where we have an absolute blast. Like, it is literally learning from the experts every episode. And it expands our minds, expands our views and perspectives as providers. And it's just truly such an amazing opportunity. So if you could like and subscribe, I don't want to say I don't care if you don't listen, but if you would like and subscribe, it helps us grow and get our message out because we do hear so often, like, you guys are doing amazing work. Thank you for all you do. But we want to grow our audience, grow our reach so more people can get better help that just feel, I don't know, the same way that we do. There's more out there. We can be those people that are radically pursuing something that can change the trajectory of somebody's life. So, that being said, questions about what I asked, anything I said today?
That was awesome. I loved it. I want to challenge those because there's a few of you who have done some result reviews with me and we've had conversations because sometimes the bacteria is not there and we still have patients who are presenting with disease and we have to kind of figure out the missing pieces, and oftentimes I'm pointing you to diet or airway, gut health, all of those types of things. So this is another really cool tool to kind of figure out the pieces to find what's going on because sometimes it is bacteria. And I think, yeah, super cool. It's the first time I've been able to actually hear Amanda speak, even though we've been podcasting for a year together almost. But that was amazing. Does anybody have any questions? We had one comment, I don't know if anyone read, that all halogens compete with iodine receptors. This is a major reason why goiter is making such a comeback in the United States, mainly because of soda pops, especially Mountain Dew, where those are super dangerously high.
Soda pops. Tell me where you're from without telling me where you're from. But
Just
yes,
kidding.
it's so crazy. I mean, I'm in Utah, and Utah doesn't do caffeine, but they do soda like nobody's business here. Like, there is dirty soda. If you know what dirty soda is, it's just where they do soda and they do different flavors in there. There are soda places like coffee shops on every corner. It's just insane, and it's considered healthy. Like, the drinks that they get are like the Route 44, if you know what Sonic is, or the Big Gulps. Like, these mostly women are starting their day not with breakfast, but with these giant sodas.
Wow.
Diet sodas with sugar-free, flavorings in there, and then to top it off, almost all of these places sell sugar cookies, frosted sugar cookies, or beignets, which I'm like, I cannot even imagine the glycemic impact of that, but there's just
And
so nutrition there's no nutrition.
I have a question with you mentioned several times, and I think we all do have to have the stress conversation, but how does stress impact the reactive oxygen species levels in the carotenoid testing? Obviously, we know that stress plays a huge role in hormones and all of that with patient presentation. Stress is a huge part of disease. So how are you noticing how stress can impact the readings?
Like, are you asking what the mechanism of action
Yeah.
is?
Are you noticing that if someone is under a lot of stress, then they have more oxygen?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
No.
yeah. Yeah, I know specifically stress depletes magnesium, right? And then it's going to deplete your zinc, which zinc is a major, basically, it's a key that unlocks a lot of those antioxidants. So that's one of the biggest ways that it's just mechanically going to just destroy your body, absolutely destroy your body. And it wears on your nervous system as well, especially if you're depleted in magnesium and zinc.
Melissa asked, when will the Prism IO be available for purchase?
It is available. They released it in January of this year. If you're interested, I can tell you price point's right at $300 for this thing. And the super cool thing, like um, most technologies, like if you have a continuous glucose monitor, like it is for you and for 2 weeks. I've, I think I've scanned hundreds of people at this point in time. So there's not, a release. Melissa, I'll message you. So it is available for purchase. It's through Pharmanetics through New Skin. So you have to have somebody share it with you. Full disclosure on here, because I don't want to mislead anybody. Um, New Skin is I mean, they're a wellness company. Their goal, they want to see improvement. They're an anti-aging company. And I think when I initially thought anti-aging, I was like, so like beauty products. But when you think about oxidation is what's aging. So their concept of anti-aging is stopping the oxidation process in those ROS species. So anyway, they have supplements associated with this. How they're making money is not off of a $300 piece of technology. It's the hope of getting people on supplementation afterwards, which full disclosure, I signed up for those supplements because I was really curious because I struggle to be compliant with my supplements. These come prepackaged. Hold on 2 seconds. Let me grab my supplements. Okay. I travel, and when supplements come in your bottle of B12, your bottle of vitamin D. Ugh, this is how they come.
Yep.
This is how they come. And these guys, these are their omega 3s. They're coated in vanilla, so they taste amazing. I am a child because it feels like I'm eating candy at the end of the day. They're delicious, but the quality that they have on these, this is not it looks like plastic. This is compostable material. Everything that they have, each bag has a number on it, so you can find out where the fish came from to get your omegas.
I have to say, that's pretty convenient. Right now, I'm going through some nutritional counseling with somebody, and my husband's like, how many supplements are you
Yeah,
taking?
I kid you
I have
not.
like a whole counter cabinet full of
Yeah.
And honestly, like I'm just kind of shot in the dark. Oh, I gotta take this one. I gotta take this one. So it is kind of nice to have it just packaged and
It's
for
amazing. I will throw a handful of these in my purse, um, and go from there.
are this
Um,
the same for everyone, or do you scan? How does it work that way?
they have so many. Okay, so if you go onto New Scan's website, they have a ton of stuff. The specifically with these supplements. So you can see it says Pharmanex on the top. Ooh, there it is. So these are specific to the scanner. So these come with a money back guarantee. If it does not improve your scanner score in 6 weeks, they will give you your money back. When I got my first scan in like December, I was in like the high yellow zone.
Okay.
And now you saw I was in like the very high green to blue zone. And that's where I'm averaging right now. Um, so are they the same for everybody? Everybody gets to make a decision based on where they're at. If they're nutritionally if they're in the red, they need to be on this. It's the Life Pack Nano, and that comes with the omegas. They have different types of, I don't say levels of supplement. It does come down to cost because these are going to be more expensive because they're delicious. They're insanely high quality. They do specifically have CoQ10, which helps with absorption, even if you're dealing with,
You got
yes, thank you. I'm like, what is that called? Your junctions aren't in there. So you have options based on your budget, but these are specific to your carotenoid score to raise this score and make it higher.
So if you're in the yellow, you're going to have one supplement packet that's specialized for the yellow grouping and throughout the whole.
Even if you're in that yellow grouping, they'll make a recommendation. But if you're like, I just cannot afford that,
Yeah.
you can't. But like I went with the highest one on accident, actually, that comes with an extra bottle of the omega 3s. And I want to say that one comes out to like $3.50 a day, which it sounds like a lot up front, but when you're buying like 6 or 7 different supplements and they're $30 a piece,
Yeah. Or
yeah,
more,
or
or
more.
or $50 to $60 a
Yeah,
piece.
supplements add up really fast.
Do you increase your
Um,
score only with proper? Can you do it with food?
I'm sure you can, but the reality is like our soils are so depleted. The stuff that we're getting from grocery stores anymore is just absolute crap. It's really interesting. It would be really interesting to see like Heather, I know you grow a ton of your food.
Yeah.
I think if somebody had a radically poor diet, like they're just eating fast food all day, every day, this was a conversation I actually had with a patient. We had a really good conversation. She's like, I just love and crave fast food. I was like, yeah, it tastes good until you finally break yourself of it. And then you get to that point where you've been eating clean for so long that the thought of eating McDonald's is good. And then you eat it and you're like, this doesn't taste how I thought it did. Right. So I think if you were in that situation, I think you would see a big change just with diet. But I think if you're somebody that already has a little bit healthy of a diet, you might see a change, but I don't think it would be as drastic as if you were having that directed supplementation to really impact those scores.
And this is cool because it really kind of bumps off from Amber's last month because she talked a lot about uh, vitamins and minerals, right? And hair testing, carotenoids. By just increasing some of those vitamins, you're on the same level, but you're dealing with different aspects of the nutrients that play a role. So we need all of those meats and vegetables for the purpose of the minerals that
Yeah.
I was talking about, but also the carotenoids are playing a huge role in the healing and stress levels. I know Anne Rice talked about just eating a bowl of blueberries, and it was all about the conversations. She didn't mention carotenoids, but it's the antioxidant benefits of blueberries for brain health.
Yeah.
So it's all about oxidative stress. and making
so
sure that you're
much.
bringing those in. So super cool. Thank
Yeah.
you. Awesome. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute and ask. You don't have to stay in the chat.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So if any of you are interested, right now I'm keeping some of these webinars open for the public, but eventually they will be closed to the Saliva Sleuths community. So you can join Saliva Sleuths, HeatherKenney, RDH.com. And there's a tab that says Saliva Sleuths, and you can join. What you get with Saliva Sleuths is monthly webinars where I have guest speakers coming in, open microbe nights, which also might have some guest speakers coming in. But for the open microbe nights, we talk about cases, research articles, open conversations. It's really about community and building your confidence in talking about these subjects to your patients. So Amanda mentioned also you can find the two of us on Functional Roots. We've done, I think that I counted 21 podcasts over the last year, and we have some really amazing guests in all realms of the space. So in dentistry, airway, we're interviewing a naturopath, MD tomorrow. So we've had a few functional doctors coming into the space. So we're really trying to tie that whole body health into the Functional Roots podcast. Do you keep a listing of functional dentists? In my Saliva Sleuths community, I do have a referral section that I'm working on getting you a list of practitioners, functional minded doctors, hygienists who might be functional minded, myofunctional therapists, functional doctors, functional nutritionists. I would like to get a chiropractic group going. I just spoke with a chiropractor yesterday who I think I'm going to have speaking. He's going to be hopefully coming on to and we actually have a chiropractor in the group this
Oh.
evening that I met a while ago. So Dr. Tyler Pram is a chiropractor in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and he's amazing. So shout out to you, Dr. Pram.
Um, Another resource for biological is either IAOMT or IABDM. To be listed on those websites, you have to go through some sort of either become a member or some sort of training. And there is training that you can do, like being SMART certified is being able to remove those mercury amalgams safely, not just for the patient, but for the practitioners as well, which is nice.
Yeah, you can hop in, ask a question. Otherwise, we'll wrap up.
Thank you guys so much for listening and having great questions. Yeah, for just being here. Thank you.